This conference will now be recorded.
Is it being recorded?
Yeah, I have it on my phone.
Okay. Commissioner Gandy, please lead us in prayer.
Yes, sir. We bow your heads and pray with me, please. Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you for this evening. Lord God, we just thank you for the multitude of blessings you've given each one of us in here. Lord God, we just thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ, and the salvation he brings to us. But Lord God, as we prepare for Thanksgiving, we look around at our friends and family. We look around at ourselves, and Lord, we just thank you because everything we have is given by you. Lord God, I just thank you for our employees, our staff, our fire department, our police department, water, and our citizens. Lord God, because only they make this all work. Lord God, I just pray that you would continue to protect them, watch over them, and bless them as you see fit. Lord God, as we come to this Thanksgiving time, I just pray that you would help us to look out at those that are less fortunate, give us the courage and the ability to help those in times of need, whether that be financial, whether that be a friendly shake, a hug, a kind word, or a meal. Lord God, just help us to provide for those in need. Lord God, I just pray for each one of the commissioners as we take on this task of leading and guiding this community. I pray that you would give each one of us the foresight and the wisdom to do what is right and guide this community in a way that you would see fit. Lord God, we just thank you. And again, we thank you for your Son, Jesus, and his salvation he brings on the cross. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Thank you, Commissioner Gandy. Do I have a motion?
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Second. Motion was made by Commissioner Campbell, seconded by Commissioner Gandy. Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, roll call, Shannon.
Commissioner Gandy,
Yes.
Commissioner Butcher,
Yes.
Mr. Compost,
Yes.
Commissioner Bolt,
Yes.
Mayor Trujillo.
Yes. Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for consideration of the minutes November 8th, 2021.
Motion was made by Commissioner Gandy, seconded by Commissioner Campos. Is there any discussion? There's no discussion on the agenda. Roll call, Shannon.
Commissioner Compost,
Yes.
Commissioner Bolt,
Yes.
Commissioner Butcher,
Yes.
Commissioner Gandy,
Yes.
Mayor Trujillo.
Yes. Chief, are we okay the way we're situated here? I'm talking about.
As long as we keep the doors open and clear, we should be fine, sir.
Appreciate it. Moving on to Commissioner and staff reports. Shannon?
Yes, we posted in the paper and on the website for the early voting, which will begin Tuesday, February the 1st, through Friday, February 25th, and on Saturday, February 26th, from 10 to 6. The other days are just during regular business hours. Except for Saturday, which will be a special 10 to 6 opening. That's it.
Are there any questions for Shannon?
Question for Shannon. Did you happen to talk to the auditor about the unemployment figures that were not reconciled yet?
No.
Are you going to be able to?
I'm kind of waiting until we can get together and have that discussion when our audit gets underway.
Okay, good, because I just want to make sure that we're moving forward and we don't have them things on us again in the future.
Right.
Wanted to keep abreast of that, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Deputy Treasurer?
Yes, Commissioners and Mayor, I wanted to introduce Melissa. She's going to be helping in the finance, and she's going to be doing accounts payable tonight, so any questions directed at her, and I'm just setting for some work tonight. Be nice.
You're nice.
I-
Is there any questions for Deputy Treasurer? There are no questions? Chief?
Mayor and Commissioners, just want to remind the public that the City Hall will be closed Wednesday through Friday, and will be open back up on Monday. I believe the hours have been, the convenience station will be closed on Wednesday as well, but they will be back open Friday and Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. So they'll be back.
They'll be open Saturday.
This Saturday, I'm sorry. So, that's for them. And then senior will be the same way. They'll be closed Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to allow for the hours. So that's all I have to bring to the commission tonight.
Is there any questions for Chief?
Yes, I have one. Chief, I was wondering, on our ambulance recovery fund, where we make our runs, how did our audit come out on that as far as us? Do we have an individual person that's gonna deal with these people, and how is that being?
So right now, we have a third-party biller that we contracted out last year, I believe it was the first year. And they're our third-party billing company. So they respond to the audits, and they'll also respond to, or any questions from the auditors. I will relay that to them.
Okay, so that's what we have been having some success in recovery as far as
Funding?
Funding, yeah.
Yes, sir, we have. Last year, we were able to bring in, I believe, 900, a little over 900,000 in ambulance billing, which is our highest that we've ever had. So I think that the third-party billing has been very beneficial to the city.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any questions for Chief? Commissioner Bolt?
A couple of things. The holiday season is amongst us, and just like to remind everybody, do good as far as shopping local, give our businesses, a good amount of patronage, and see about getting out there and restaurant, and get out there and just enjoy the atmosphere, be out there with family, and help our local businesses out. Another thing, I'd like to put a shout out to Lee County Electric. They put the wreaths up on Main Street here last week. It was really nice. So I'd like to say good job to the people of Lee County Electric. And last Monday, came down the road and seen a whole bunch of cars over at the library. Didn't know what it was about. And went over there and found out that once a year they have bedtime stories. It's a program that they have. And talked to the people at the library, and they had over 160 people there. And a lot of little individuals from the city dressed up in pajamas and that, a whole bunch of little kids out there having a good time. So I'd really like to thank everyone that participated, read, went, and let the people know at the library that they're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bernard?
I did have some, said my first piece of it, but you'll come back around to me in here.
Commissioner Coppell?
I just had a question for Chief Brandon. Chief, can you give us an update on that missing girl?
There are actually two missing over the weekend. One was located yesterday, came home to her family. Stephanie, who went missing after school on Friday, was located by the Lovington Police Department this afternoon around 3:30. She is safe and sound, but we are doing a full investigation to see what happened. But she is safe.
In the second group?
She's safe with family. Yes, sir.
Good job.
Thank
Just
you.
let your officer know as well, if you would, please.
Appreciate that, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Gandy?
Concerned citizen calling, motor vehicle department.
Yes, sir.
About. Well, breakfast for one. Didn't assign in the window. I didn't know if that was a standard policy or not. So, somebody check on that for me?
Yeah, I did discuss that with Maria, and it was, she was gone that day, and the emails and her employees didn't realize that they're not supposed to shut down. So they're not supposed to shut down. They're supposed to be open from 8 to 4 Monday to Thursday. And so she had a couple of new employees, they thought they could close and go eat. She did talk to her, so they will be open Monday to Thursday. Appreciate it, Mr. Gandy. I have a couple of things. I just wanted to brag on the parks and recs. I don't know if anybody's gone out and saw the parks and the ballparks. A lot cleaner, getting some stuff done, getting some paint on the equipment out there and so forth. Go out to Chaparral Park, you'll see that they've done a lot of cleaning, a lot of cutting down some of the old trees that are out there, doing an outstanding job. The water department and wastewater, their vehicles running around this weekend, still got a few bad water leaks, but they're getting them done. And a couple of lift stations that we've had some problems with, so it's been very active, but I was just excited, just to drive by and see them there and so forth, even though they're working, but I feel like there's just a different sense of energy throughout all the employees here at the city of Lovington. A lot more pride. I just feel the energy. These guys are getting the job done, and I'm not getting no feedback, no nothing. It's all positive. So it really feels good that everybody's excited to be on board with the city, and they're doing their part. Wastewater and water, they're building a brand new team out there, and they're excited. And same way with Parks and Recs and Street Department. So I just want to shout out to them that it's the commissioners noticed, and I believe the citizens noticed they're doing a good job. But it shows. I mean, I just want to name, for example, on K, when they had that water leak, they fixed the water leak, and then the road department went out there and fixed the road. I didn't even have to tell them. I drove by and I said, wow, because I saw it, and I said, well, when they get done here, they need to come by and fix the road. I didn't even, next day, know it was fixed. So it kind of like shows where their thinking's at. I just wanted to say that I really appreciate, I know the board, but also the board really appreciates all the city employees do for our community. Jan?
Yes.
So you did say parks. When you said parks, it jarred my. So I did have a concerned citizen call and say that due to the fact that we had a great year of rain, but now we're back to the typical dry season. Might want to try to water the park a little bit to keep the parks fresh. That way we don't lose any trees over the winter and stuff like that. It's just a suggestion, but I don't know what the man and staffing would be to do.
No,
that, but-
there's an automated system, so it should be one.
But I'll be something to check
Uh,
on. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to remind everybody that effective Monday, City Hall and NBD hours will be changing. That's effective Monday, November 29th, sorry. City Hall will be open 4 full days, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then Fridays, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. by the drive-through only. NBD will be 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Thursday. Debbie Lee will be here tomorrow, and we will discuss the next process for the city manager hiring. We currently only have 5 applicants. Whenever we decide on the next process, we will inform everybody. And then just a reminder, there will be a special meeting tomorrow to interview for the treasurer at 5:30. You have any
Ms. Lee, did you want to stand up and be recognized? Ms. Lee, she has 35 years experience.
I'm a recovering citizen.
Yeah. She is assisting us with our new city manager position, so she's kind of helping us guide to ensure we get the person that is our community.
Yes, sir, and thank you for the opportunity to work with you. I loved living in Hobbs and Lovington, and I raised my children in Aztec, so we always compete with Lovington. Congratulations, you're going to the state championship in football. So we keep track. I have a football coach husband and a football coach son, so we keep track of Lovington very well on track and football. past fall. So I am helping the city of Lovington. I currently work for Southeast New Mexico Economic Development District, the Council of Governments. And so Dora Batista is allowing me to help you guys. You currently are a member of the Council of Government, so I'm doing this to help you. So but thank you for the opportunity. It's good to be back in business here.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, on November 18th, the Lee County Board of Commissioners voted unanimously on the proposed absorption of the Lovington Dispatch by LCCA, which is an action item before this commission tonight. Regardless of which way the vote goes, I would like to thank the Lee County Board of Commissioners, especially Commissioner Dean Jackson, who is here tonight, who allocated $150,000 of his own discretionary funds for the purchase of 20 mobile data terminals for the city of Lovington Police, Fire, and EMS units to help make this plan possible. I also want to thank County Manager Mike Gallagher and LCCA Director Angela Martinez, who are also here tonight, who have worked very hard on this proposal, which will greatly strengthen public safety for the city of Lovington and surrounding areas. So thank you all for that. Appreciate it. On November 18th, the Lee County Board of Commissioners also approved the donation of 4 Lee County Sheriff's Office Ford Interceptor police units to the Lovington Police Department. I'd like to personally thank Sheriff Corey Helton and Undersheriff Mike Walker for helping the Lovington Police Department with this donation, which will help us hold over until such time as the department can purchase new equipment. And then just briefly, we have had an indication of interest from one of our certified officers in filling the vacant school resource officer position. We hope to complete this process by January 1st. And we have had some incidents of graffiti and vandalism at the city swimming pool. I spoke to Bernardo today. He put a new lock on it to secure the facility, and I'm having the dollar value estimates of the damage added to our police report so that it may be submitted for insurance claim purposes. That's all I have.
I'd like to add to what you just stated, Chief, I forgot to, because I am looking at 3 different contractors, see what it takes to get that swim pool back together, so I can bring it to the board to find out the cost of this. Yeah. Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Crystal?
Mayor, Commissioners, we have the request for bids that we're going to do on the properties at 1201 West Tyler and the 700 block of North Chavez. I'm going to have those ready at the next commission meeting on December 13th. That way you guys could go for approval so we can advertise. Plan to have those bids out for 2 weeks on those properties. And then that way possibly awarding those properties to the bidders in January. Then the Jefferson Street project, we're still working on the design with Pettigrew and Associates. That project was never fully designed when it was looked at before. So we have to go through that process in order to meet the state mandates on the money that we received on that. So we're working on that. The Main Street project, we're working on an update for the water line with Pettigrew and Associates. If we update the water line placement in Main Street, we're going to avoid several conflicts with the sewer and storm drain retention. We're going to avoid the fact that the way the water line is designed now, it would be anywhere from 11 to 12 foot deep. The city would not be able to maintain that line. We'd have to hire a contractor because we don't have anything that would get us to that depth to fix those lines. So with the redesign of this, it would bring that line up to where it's only 5 to 6 foot underground. That way we can maintain it and make it easier on us. And it's going to alleviate some of the conflicts with the sewer storm. And I passed my stormwater qualification test on Friday.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then Evelyn was going to update you on the cobblestone development. Ready? She said she'd be here.
Oh, the call, sorry. Evelyn Hogan, Lovington EDC.
I spoke to Chuck Johnson as of 5 o'clock today. All the work has been completed. The county electric just finished on Friday of last week. He mentioned that everything was up and running. Inspections have already been approved and passed. And now what we need to do is we need to close the project. The utilities will now come to the city of Leamington. And then you are able to, I believe it's like 133,000 that we exceeded in cost. So the EDC and the city of Leamington only allocated 175,000 towards that project. So they actually exceeded it. So whatever the remaining balance, Eddie Valencia with Cobblestone will pay that difference. So we just need to invoice Eddie so that can get paid.
Is there any questions for him? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also want to reiterate, they will not start the negotiations of the hotel until March. Cobblestone has asked to give them a few months. They were under the assumption that we were going to be closed down again, and the numbers don't work if we're closed down partially. So they have asked to allow us for us to be 100% open for at least 6 months, and that will be in March, and they will renegotiate, but he doesn't see any problem after March.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's all.
Question for Crystal? Thank you. City Attorney McMahon?
Mayor and Commissioners, the only thing I would have would be maybe a comment or two on Resolution 2021-96 when it comes up. Otherwise, I don't have anything new and stand for any questions.
Any questions for Mr. McMahon? There's no question for McMahon. I'll open the floor up to public comment. Please state your name and limit it for 3 minutes, please. More than 3 minutes.
Mayor, Commissioners, my name is Tim Boyson, the Vice Commander of the American Legion. And I'd like to thank you all for coming out and helping us with our breakfast on Veterans Day. It was a great success. Everything else, the community helped out and all the veterans, everything else. And I'd just like to say thank you very much for passing the word out to all the veterans in the city that they came out. And thank you very much. And hope to continue this between the city and American Legion in the future. And we're also going to be in the parade on the 3rd, I believe. On Friday the 3rd, we'll be in the parade. For about the first time in a long time. So we're trying, American Legion trying to get back to where they were with the city and everything. So that's all I got. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Don't say that.
Mayor and Commissioners, my name is Mary Jones. I am the president of our, what we're calling Lee County Senior Dance Committee. We want to say thank you, first of all, for allowing us to use the Teen Center for our dances. We are going to be starting, as the flyer says, December 18th. We're going to have our Christmas dance. Anyone is welcome other than little kids. There's no smoking, no alcohol, no drugs allowed. And we do watch that pretty closely. We will have a country western band. Very good. So everybody's welcome. Please come out. It's $5 per person. And 3/4 of our take will be going to pay the band. And the other quarter is for our supplies for our potlucks, which we have before the dance. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. And you.
Oh, I got two hats here.
On the youth center, we
Any
made,
que- Do you have any questions
no,
for us?
no, I was just going to make that comment that we did make adjustments to the youth center, to the senior citizens were asked a place to gather. We will charge them $1 for rent, and they will have to have a deposit. So they'll have a deposit and $1 rent for the facility, and they plan on renting it twice a month.
And that has been paid to the park.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deanne Kimbrough. I'd like to address the commission tonight on a couple of different issues. The first one was, we were on the agenda last week, our last commission meeting, and I had a conflict, so we had to postpone it. So, and then it got dropped on this time. So we're going to be back on the agenda for next time, but I kind of wanted to give you a heads up on what it was about. Several years ago, I had spoke to former city manager James Williams about doing a program called Love Lovington. And I started that Facebook page and had an idea where we as citizens of the city could take back ownership of the city. And what that means is if you give people ownership of something, they're going to take care of it better. They'll maintain it and take pride in it. And there's so many little city properties that, you know, the city, obviously the atmosphere has changed, and we're not going to be able to hire back the personnel for many years, you know, from what we had. And if each of those little small city properties, like the little bump outs on Main Street there by the museum and the courthouse, and like the magistrate court, you know, if different people, you know, like could adopt it and take care of it and maintain it, and just put a little plaque out there, you know, saying this is done by this business or this private person, you know, it would relieve the city parks and rec, you know, from having to do that. They could maintain and take care of what they really needed to be, you know, the big projects where it takes a lot of time to stop and take that little area and take it, and they still can't really do it, maintain it. Even when we had the personnel, it wasn't maintained that well. And so I would like to propose that y'all take that under consideration, that, you know, that you let different either businesses or individuals adopt little plots of city property to take care of and maintain, plant flowers, pull weeds, whatever they wanted to do. I know I know there was a conflict, you know, like with the baseball fields and stuff. I mean, there's a lot of people in the city who want to step up and take care of it. And Rotary Park, if I'm not mistaken, is owned by the city, and they have a contract, you know, that they maintain that. So Friends of the Library, they do the same thing. So I know there's the groundwork already within the city to do that. So if we could get in and identify those little areas and let people take over them and pull the weeds and plant flowers and do stuff like that, I think it would be a great thing. One, for the city, the appearance of the city, but it would also give back ownership and pride for the citizens of the city. It's something I would like y'all to consider. Next week, next commission meeting, we'll be back on the agenda with it where you can comment, but it'll give you something to think about and where we can all.
No, I appreciate that, and no, our apologies.
No, it's okay.
Because I forgot to put it on, but we will have a discussion on tomorrow.
That'll work. The other thing I wanted to talk to the city commission about tonight is, I don't know if the city currently has a nepotism rule, but if they don't, I think it's something that needs to be adopted. We have boards, we have, you know, the commission, we have boards, and you have a lot of conflict of interest. You have a lot of different nepotism and stuff that goes on. And I think that needs to be cleaned up. The citizens of this community need to have trust in you, the city government. It is our money and our tax dollars. And I think it may not be legal, but it's not right. And it doesn't smell good. Go ahead.
So I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On your nepotism. You're saying the boards?
Mm-hmm.
So the only way nepotism actually works is if it's a paid position.
Even
The
if,
board is a voluntary situation. So I don't think that would apply in that situation.
and
And
also,
the other problem could be, to go back to your first deal, discussion anyway.
yes,
Every 3 minutes. But you can barely get people to volunteer for the boards. How are you going to get them to volunteer to adopt a piece of property? So just for discussion, like I said, you know, you threw that out. So I want you to
Yes,
go
I
on that
agree.
too, because
I agree.
we have positions open. We advertise constantly for these positions.
Where do you advertise for them at?
Wherever they advertise.
Lovington Meter, it gets advertised there, we discussed it here at the commission meetings as well. And I'll have it posted outside in the lobby
And on Facebook,
and Facebook.
social media.
I've never seen it, that's why I was just
Yeah.
asking.
They're there, but so just to throw that out there, you know, the paid position, nepotism, we do have clauses that are in our ordinances and resolutions, everything like that, that cover that.
But also a conflict, not just nepotism, but a conflict of interest.
As far as,
Well, if you are on a board that recommends funding for certain groups and you're on the board for those groups, is that not a conflict?
that'd be a question for the attorney.
I guess we'd have to look at it, see what the specific details are. You know, if there may be an issue with a conflict of interest, not necessarily with the label of nepotism, but there may be something. to take a look at.
On a conflict. It just, we see that, I mean, we see it a lot because of a small community and we realize that a lot of people are family or, you know, you sit on 3 or 4 different boards and stuff like that, but there needs to be a break, you know, in between, so it's not such a conflict.
So do you feel that there's a reason that there's that person filling that position, or do you feel that it's the citizens not stepping up filling those positions?
The citizens, not both. And I think we as a community need to step up and start taking on the responsibilities of our city. Just like you're saying, you know, you can't get people to volunteer for things. Well, shame on us if we're citizens of this city or we own property in the city and we don't maintain it, take care of it, and also volunteer to help take care of the other city property. You know, I mean, I think it's a time when you don't need to just sit back and say, well, the city will take care of it. You know, I can bend down and pick up that piece of trash or pull that weed or clean that sidewalk, and I think every other citizen should take on that same responsibility. So no, I'm not blaming you as a city or the city commission. I'm saying that we as citizens of this town need to step up and be able to do that. You're not gonna.
These 3 minutes is up. We really appreciate it. Definitely be on the discussion after the first next.
But it is something, like I said, on the nepotism and stuff, I think it's something that, and nepotism and conflict that I would really like the city commission to take a look at.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, thank you, Mayor, City Council. My name's Danny Fletcher, and I just wanted to let you all know that I am the new government community liaison for Holtec International and the Eddie Lee Energy Alliance. And I just wanted to come in and introduce myself because I'm going to be calling you and talking to you, bringing you some updates with what's happening with the Holtec project and with the Eddie Lee Energy Alliance. So I just wanted to introduce myself right now. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you. Any other public comment? There's no other public comment. We'll move on to non-action items. Chief?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, the only non-action item this evening is a discussion of the animal shelter by Laura Brock.
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you. Laura Brock, I'm the City of Lovington Animal and Code Enforcement Supervisor. Tonight, we're going to talk about the Lovington Animal Shelter and hopefully get some direction in where it's going there. It's a lot that's happened over this last year. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Tonight, I want to tell you about and update you on the current status on supervising veterinarian, what that is. Some people may not know what that is and the importance of it, what our current and what our maybe future lease agreement would look like. I'd like to recommend some stuff there. The minimum shelter standards, state statute, Lovington Municipal Code, and then the next steps on what's going to go on. So our current status, this is 2021 events. In January of 2021, we lost our consulting vet. And with that, we started outsourcing our spay neuter services, rabies, health certificates, and care for any injured or sick animals. Dr. Westall with Lee County Veterinary has been our main source of getting those services. Dr. Munich in Seminole Veterinary Clinic, he has also helped us. And most recently, through the help of volunteers, we've been able to find Fix West Texas. It's over in Midland, and we have had volunteers and taking over animals to there to get animals fixed at a lower cost. So in April, we went out for an RFP for consulting a vet along with the lease, giving the current vet a 90-day notice. In May, we had no response, but the current vet came in instead and offered to buy the facility. In August, the current vet did not get a response back and offered to be our consulting vet, once again, do our spay and neuters until the city made a decision on which way they were going to go. I have only been recently made aware that that actually happened. The Humane Society also in August, I was notified we're no longer going to help us with funding with 2 part-time employees. That left us with 0 part-time employees because over the past 2 years, we lost the 2 city part-time employee positions. So those part-time people, they came out, they cleaned and did all the taking care of the animals and stuff like that. So it was a big hit. Now there's only 3 of us that's left to do caring for the animals, cleaning, all the transports, the spay and neuter stuff, and as well as doing the code enforcement for our city, along with many other services that we provide. So the Humane Society, even though they cannot offer us 2 paid positions anymore, they are offering to assist with transports, spay and neuter funding, shot clinics, microchip clinics. As soon as the funding becomes available, they're going to make that funding available to us. So that's what they're still offering, to be part of us and to still help us out as much as they can. And then in September, we started raising funds for the spay and neuter services with the budget cuts and additional expense to outsource these services. So when we are providing spay and neuter in our shelter, the cost of to spay an animal on the average, and if you start dividing it out and everything by the hours we were doing, the hours we were paying, and to source it, so that $34 that's in-house includes the vet and 3 city employees and then all the supplies. So that's the medication and everything. That's about the average cost of what it was, is $34. And then to outsource it, you're starting at $70 and it goes up depending on weight. And we're talking about cats and animals. So cats are a little usually cheaper for a male neuter versus a cat spay. Anything spay is way more expensive. So it's a huge, whenever we're doing budgeting, $34 to 70 to an average of 125 and plus is a huge difference. And so therefore, that's why we had to start raising money in order to still be able to help these animals out. So in November, I also received a letter of interest from another vet that is out of Lubbock who would like to be considered and be our consulting vet and do spay neuter services. And at time, if we can get funding, to also do low cost spay and neuter for the city. And then also in November, the city signed that $150,000 reimbursement grant for design to build and equip a shelter. That's where a lot of this goes into play, is we need to plan out what is our future going to be and what direction do you want to go. So this is 2021, January through October's numbers at a glance. If you look at it, you'll see that the euthanasia rate is at 27%, which is actually really high. In order to be considered a no-kill shelter, we have to have that at a 10%. The transport numbers at 43%. Return to owner and adopted have actually stayed about the same as the 2020. So everything that we've gone through this year has been a huge impact on this. One of the things that is a huge impact is the care ratio and losing the 4 part-time employees. So in order this care ratio and what is humane and how many hours you should spend cleaning and taking care of these animals, you have to take that into what your population is going to be. So when we lost the last of our employees, we had to cut the animal population down in half because we can't care for that many for that long. So that also then makes a huge toll on what you can get transported also. And if you're spaying and neutering, took a big hit because we were spaying and neutering, and they were actually, the rescues were starting to send about $49, what it averaged out to, $49 they were feeding back into the city through the Humane Society. And we did get a check for like $5,000, a little over $5,000 to help recoup some of that cost for the city. We also, with the spay and neuter, what's important to that is that also we were able to bring in money from the state and made us eligible for state funding. So we brought in $9,000 worth of state funding that in return we had to use for spay and neuter. And in that in 2019, because we were eligible because the city was doing the spay and neuter stuff, Then we turned around and I worked with the vet and we did a certificate type program, and we offered it to anybody, and the citizens only had to pay a low cost to get that certificate, and there was only so many. It was a huge success, and we were able to get that only because we participate in these programs of life-saving and try to make a difference. So in 2020, which is the year of COVID hit, we ran into some problems, but we still had a really great year. We had a huge intake that year. It was still our 4th year as a no-kill shelter, which was huge because funding was actually cut in 2020. And that was one of the things that we reached out to rescues. I said, we have to cut our budget. I need help in funding. Can you help pay some part to reimburse for the medical for these animals? And they said yes. And so we were able to help bring in some funding to do that. And that was our 4th year. Supervising vet. So the supervising vet, they will assist with the overall health of all the animals. They also do protocols and policies and procedures for the shelter, along with a treatment plan of action for the injured, sick animals, and advice of the clinical nature to staff. The veterinarian will oversee all medications, and the supervising veterinary will provide spay and neuter services. So when you talk about overseeing all of the medications, it's highly important that whenever animals come in and if they're sick, and all we need to do, if it's a respiratory disease, then there's a protocol that here's these 3 types of medications and that how much they weigh, and then we can order the medication. Us being able to have that supervising vet allows us to order that medication, because without that vet, we can't order that medication, which means we can't treat the animal, which then means we have to either make the decision to euthanize them over something that they could be given a couple of weeks worth of antibiotics, or we take them to a vet and pay twice the expense. So it's actually more expensive to outsource it. We get special pricing for being a shelter. So we're able to get things at a lower cost. And the reason they've done that is to help shelters to be able to help give the care to these animals they need to be able to get them out. So they are very important. When it comes to euthanizing, we were able to get our DEA license again this year, which I was really worried about not having the consulting vet. We cannot do spay and neuter services without the consulting vet. One of the hurdles that I had to cross was we have to, when we do pre-medicate the animal, to euthanize them. So if I have an angry, vicious dog that's in there, it is highly dangerous for us not to medicate and sedate the animal to make it more calm. Plus, it's not humane. In order to get that medication, I have to have that consulting vet, which I've been lacking. So I then had to reach out to a vet who is willing to trust us and give us a medication so that we can have part of that goes in with the other to sedate the animal so that it's a safe environment and it's a peaceful death for that animal as possible. So that's been a huge hurdle that we had to get across, that we won't have to have these problems and try to figure those solutions out as long as we have a consulting vet. Yep. Now the current lease, I wanted to point out a few things. That is included in your packet what the current lease states. There's a whole bunch in that I don't feel like we need to go over. The current lease has been since 2011. There has not been any updates to that current lease since 2011. The monthly rent has been at $1,000. The purpose of that lease was for medical services for the animals for our community. The term was for 1 year and the renewal was for 3-year terms. The utilities, the vet is responsible for communications and solid waste for her portion of the premises, and the city bears all other utility costs. On maintenance and repairs, the veterinary is responsible for keeping her premises clean and presentable and costs for any damages caused by her practice. The city is responsible for the HVAC, major plumbing, and other repairs not caused by the veterinary practices. The city maintains service agreements on permanent equipment and have repair and replacement conducted on such equipment as scheduled and needed. The veterinary will keep the city appraised of the equipment condition, and the termination in that is a 90-day written notice. Next, these are some of the recommended changes that I'd like to present to you in the lease agreement. You can go with them or look at it in more detail, but on the utilities, it really doesn't go into detail on what those utilities are. So when you say communication utilities, I would like it to, the cost to include, but not limited to, like phone services and internet services. The solid waste, I feel that it should be split 50-50 unless the veterinary makes separate arrangements for solid waste and provides city with proof of these services, because that's not happening. Equipment and cost, those spay neuter packs, well, the city to provide 6 packs for the veterinary use, and the other packs would be designated for our use during our spay and neuter time. The X-ray machine and developing machine is old and it needs to most likely be put out of service. For the vet, she doesn't feel like it's going to be able to pass the state inspection. It has to be inspected yearly. And so I'm recommending that, and she is recommending that it be retired. The repairs, there have been some repairs made, but on the last repair, what had to do with the pedal on the X-ray machine, and it was like stuck and constantly taking pictures. So when they come in to repair that, it's so old that they couldn't actually fix that. They had to do away with the pedal. So then they had to do away, which then they have to manually then hold it in order to take the X-rays. The anesthesia machine. So this machine that we actually own 2 of them. And I feel that it should be a 50-50 maintenance, repair, and replacement, because as long as we're doing the spay and neuters, then we're both utilizing it for city services as well as hers at this point. And for the last year, it's only been for her services, and then we pay all the maintenance and the repair of the tubing and stuff like that. On the autoclave machine, it will be designated, I'd like it to be designated for the shelter use only, or to cost for repair and replacement to be split 50-50. Because in the past, we have been responsible for all cost of that. But if we're both utilizing the equipment, then I feel that it should be a split cost. On all other equipment owned by the city that's offered for use shall be the sole responsibility of the veterinarian to maintain in good working condition, and proof of maintenance shall be provided to the city equipment that is provided that is no longer able to be used for any reason shall be at the sole discretion of you guys to say whether or not we're going to replace it or no longer offer it for service. Those machines would include the dental machine and the microscope machine, and then any computers. If you want to include that in there, that is something that needs to be looked at. All those machines, the X-ray, the dental, the microscope, the anesthesia, those machines have to be maintained every year. So every year they have to be inspected, and they're on a guide, and they come in and they inspect every single year to keep those up to state code. And those are some of the things I feel that need to be looked at. Minimum shelter standards. So this.
I just want to make sure I comment on that. On the equipment, I think we need to figure out a way where it's less costly for the city to, I think if somebody's profiting from it, I don't even know if that's part of anti-donation clause in that, because she's profiting from our equipment and we're having to upgrade and so forth, and especially if we're having to buy a new X-ray and somebody else is profiting from it. I don't believe we should be in the business to be giving equipment away so somebody else can profit. Even a no-kill facility is our objective, but not, the rest is all for private industry. And so I don't believe this, I mean, that's my personal feeling on that, how the other commissioners feel, but I don't think we should be paying for equipment that's being utilized by someone else for profit. Like I said.
Correct, and that's what we've been doing.
Our objective is no kill and provide a facility for it. That's our objective. I think we need to stick to our objective on that and shy away from buying equipment, upgrading computers and all that. We're not, there's no profit. I mean, I'm not saying cities not in the business to make a profit, but that's what our objective is. Let's stick to our objective, no kill facility. And that's what we can stay with,
Instead of like split cost, or is that what you're talking about? Is the split cost?
Upgrading computers, X-rays, you're looking about $100,000 worth of equipment by the end of the day. And then plus the maintenance, plus have to come out there. At the end of the year, you're looking at probably $30,000 in maintenance fees. And so we're, like I said, the objective is, I'm repeating myself, no kill shelter, not to provide equipment for somebody else's profit. I think we need to shy away from that. Me personally, the rest of the world think otherwise, but in that clause, I think we need to reevaluate.
So you basically agree with where you're looking at it, because right now that's the way it is that we pay for all the maintenance. And I'm just suggesting that if we're going to continue that only on the machinery, that we either split the machinery and it's only for one use or the other.
We'll provide this facility. She can provide all the equipment that's needed to operate her business.
Okay.
Our objective is to no kill facility. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. So effective November 1st of 2021 came in the minimum shelter standards. So the sheltering standards are guideline for shelters and their day-to-day operations and providing animal sheltering services. The standards will always be used by the board and the board shelter inspector to assist shelters and their employees to remain in compliance with the standards, which will be in full effect of the state law. So back in 2018, the New Mexico Board of Veterinary Medicine took over the animal sheltering. And when they did that, they then went to a sheltering committee and put a committee together who's been working on for the last years on putting into laws into effect for shelters to have to go by to bring up our minimum standards. And they are actually going to hire inspectors who are going to come in and inspect our facilities and make sure that we're up to these standards, or we'll be fined. And it could lead up to being shut down, actually. So this, go ahead to the next slide. Thanks. So I went through and I kind of put it, everything is that's in bold is all the main points that they kind of went in there. I didn't want to go over everything. This is several pages and a lot of information on what the shelter capacity standard, that's one of the first things it talks about, and it's the recommended standard of care and spent in the facility should be 15 minutes per animal per day. And that's also, you use that in your population control, which meant that whenever we lost employees, then that means that's why we had to then cut down how many shelter animals that we could actually take care of. And that's what they're going to look at when they walk into shelters and say, okay, well, how are you able to care for this and with employees that you have? So it's definitely a huge factor in what we can do and the standard of care that's looked at. On the disease and control, health and veterinary care standards, one of the big things is that shelter must provide treatment for pain. Not having a consulting vet or supervising vet is not an excuse for them. They want you to have a game plan. Thankful, Dr. Westall knows this because she is actually the consulting vet for the hog shelter, and she has given us a prescription for pain meds. So if we have something that comes in that's not bad enough to be euthanized, you know, then they could wait till we could get it to another source. We reach out to rescues who help us when we have injured animals that come in and try to get them to vet care, and we can provide them with pain relief. There's a list in there of signs of illness that's important to look at on what they feel that we need to have veterinary look at and should be treated in our shelter environment. This is runny noses to obvious signs to not so obvious signs. On the animal care and handling standards, I kind of went out of order there, but that talks about the food, water, quarantine, and isolation. So one of the areas that we struggle with and we try to make do with is you should have separate quarantine, and isolation should not be in the same area as your normal animals. So isolation is for sick animals. You don't want to keep your sick animals with your healthy animals. So right now, because we don't have all the space to have all the different quarantines and isolations, we may have to play ring around the rosies with animals, but we have a room that we utilize. If anything's sick, we put it in there. If it's dogs, then there's no cats in there, and we move them to the back. We've made space for them in the back, vice versa. It only becomes a challenge when you have, you know, two different species that are sick at the same time. Quarantine, we also use that quarantine right now. It's not made for the larger animals. So on the larger animals, we keep them inside and locked up, and that's how we're able to do that. So we definitely do a lot of that. Enrichment is a huge thing. And enrichment is something that I guess most people would look at that it's not something that people are used to providing. The enrichment, and I really want to highlight on enrichment and what it means. And it means improving the environment and behavior care for confined animals. So enrichment is to reduce the stress and improve the well-being by providing physical and mental stimulation and encouraging species type behaviors. In this, it says enrichment shall not be considered optional. So if we're keeping a dog that's in a 3x6 kennel, and you have that dog in there for an extended length of time, then that causes stress. They need to get out. That's one of the reasons why we utilize the horse stalls and turn them into yards for dogs, especially the big dogs. They need to get out. They need to play. They're happier. That is one of the things that, you know, a lot of our animals, we work with them as much as we can possible. We try to make the environment so that when they get to the rescue, they're easy to adopt, and then they like to pull our animals from us. It just makes the animals happier. It makes all of us happier. This goes through to vaccination standards, the record keeping, things like that, adoption standards that you can put into place and rehoming. And then on the shelter transport standards, you know, sanitation is normal. You can't have them in unrestrained beds, which I would hope nobody would do anyways. The temperatures below 45 degrees and above 80 degrees, that is something that they don't want you transporting the animals for long periods of time in those conditions in really cold weather, which is important. And that's why I've always borrowing vehicles. So when we're trying to transport to Hobbs to catch on the bus to go to Colorado, that they're inside, not outside, just during that short transport time. Another thing that we are responsible for is that we need to make sure that we are in compliance with the state shelter laws for us and for the destination shelters. And everything that leaves the state must have a health certificate, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I'm going to wrap that up on your minimum. There was a whole lot to go over. You can read through, but I just wanted to highlight some of the main factors. State statute and Lovington Municipal Code. I think it's important that we understand what the state statute says. And the state statute states that the impoundment of animals, that every municipality and each county shall provide for the impoundment of animals. Impoundment facilities may be provided by contract with a veterinary hospital, a kennel, an animal shelter, or in cooperation with other municipalities and counties, which is like why we take in the county animals all the way up, pretty much north, anything north in Lee County, all the way down to Stiles Road, and Stiles, the north side of Stiles back is what we bring in all the animals. We also bring in all of the livestock animals. We are the only facility in Lee County that is capable of holding livestock. So even Hobbs reaches out and brings their livestock over to us. Another thing, sterilization and sterilization deposit is required by state law. So if your animal, whether it be one that we're going to adopt out or it be your own animal that comes into our facility, it is state law required that that animal be sterilized. So because a lot of places don't have the spay and neuter services or have that ability, then what they can do is they can do a sterilization deposit, and it's $25, and then they have to sign a reclaim agreement stating that they will get this animal fixed within 30 days. We do not have the manpower to chase these people back down. It's something that's never really worked well anywhere, and that's also a reason why Hobbs changed and went to spaying and neutering and stuff like that. So that way, and it gave back to the community to be able to get all the animals so you don't have such a huge overpopulation problem. On the Lovington Municipal Code. So release of impounded dogs. It talks about the vaccination is required, and it's the duty of the city to provide access to facility for rabies vaccines so that all impounded dogs may be vaccinated against rabies prior to release. And then the sale of unclaimed dogs, which this would be your adopted dogs. So dogs released from the pound must be sterilized. So that's one of the driving points and becoming where we were able to do the spay and neuters, because our own ordinance stated that this needed to happen. And that was one of the driving forces to get everything going with the spay and neuter and make sure we're putting back out in the community animals who aren't going to reproduce. So our next steps. So the new shelter. So we have the capital appropriation project, and the agreement date was signed on November 4th, 2021, in the amount of $150,000. And then 5% must be obligated within 6 months. That's in May of 2022. And then 85% has to be expended prior to the revision date, which is June 30th of 2025. So that gives us approximately 4 years to work on how we're going to do this. So we need to look at what are our options on the new shelter. Do we want to build on our current location? The utilities are readily accessible with water as well. And we also have a water well for backup. So whenever you have E. coli, or even if the water services are shut down. So if we have a boil order, most people may not know this, but your animals cannot drink that water either. It can actually make them sick. So when we've had the boil order and it goes out, then what does the shelter do? You're either going to have to bring in clean drinking water for them, or what we do now is we have that water well, so we hook up to that water well, we bring it over, and we're able to provide clean water to clean and sterilize, and also for them to drink so that they don't get sick. That is one of the great aspects of where we're at. We own 2 fenced lots right there. So I didn't know if you know this, but those lots that we were on, it's actually 2 lots, and it is completely fenced in. We do have an on-site employee that lives there and provides ground maintenance, assessment, and treatment of sick or injured animals after hours. So a lot of times the medication, no different from a human being, amoxicillin, you have to give it twice a day. So in every 12 hours. So that person who lives on site actually comes over and gives that evening dose. If there's an animal in there that's been treating for parvo and needs some fluids, then that person comes over in the evening and it's at no charge to the city. to come and do that. So that's one of the things that she takes care of. She also is there, so if there's any emergencies that come up, any dogs for some reason get loose, any fights break out, security people show up out of the blue in the middle of the night, go out, find out why they're there and let them know that, they're not supposed to be there. The other option we have is other city property, and we've looked at all the different city property. When Mr. Williams was here, he had looked at land off the Arkansas Junction. I believe we bought a bunch of land that was supposed to be for water runoff and retention from all the floodwaters that we have. We looked at taking about 5 acres of that and maybe sectioning it off for a place for the animal shelter, the new animal shelter. The utilities, they come over from the DENCO. We'd have to bring them over from the DENCO, you know where DENCO is, so we have to bring water and sewer has to come over. I don't really know how much that's gonna cost. That's really not something I'm very familiar with. But it would cost us to bring over that. The electricity actually runs along the road, so that should be, you'll bring it to wherever you decide, if you decide to build there. Or our last option would be to find property and buy it. So moving forward, currently we're in a month-to-month agreement with the current vet that is leasing the property. The rent is paid till the end of December, and we're outsourcing vet services. On a short term, which means that we need to kind of make a decision in which direction we're going, I have 3 options for you. Option 1 would be to go out for an RFP with recommended changes in that lease agreement that we talked about for the lease of the veterinary clinic, with the leasee being the supervising vet and also providing spay-neuter services for the city. Option 2 would be an RFP with a lease agreement for the lease of the veterinary clinic to include days of use. So let's say the vet she uses it 2 days a week. So in that agreement, it would be 2 days, and then a separate RFP for a supervising vet and spay-neuter services provided on days not utilized by the leasee of the veterinary clinic. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, if another vet wanted to come in, that's when we could do our spay-neuter and be our consulting vet on those other days that facility is not being utilized for that practice. That's what that option brings you, 2 different options within one. Option 3, because it was put out on the table, the RFP to sell the property with a clause to lease to the city for 4 years with conditions on that. And then long term, we need to look at where we build, where are we going to build? Are we going to continue? So you could build where we're at, and we could continue to lease our current building for veterinary services, or we could utilize the current building for city spay and neuter services and possible low-cost programs for citizens that would be funded by other sources. Or in the long term, if we build where we're at, we could demo the current building if you so wish to do so. And then option 2 would be build in a new location and then sell our current facility that we're at. And do you have any questions for me?
I have one on, I know you say it was spading and neutering.
Yes.
Before, I pick up a dog from the animal shelter. Well, are we also looking into that animal getting chipped? Because that's a great idea before we release them. So if that dog's running loose, well, you can find a hey, that belongs to Bernard. We're gonna find him.
Yeah.
The dog's running wild,
And
is that gonna be included in that service?
yes, we already include that. We've been doing it for 4 years. We've been actually, anything that leaves our facility is microchipped unless it's reclaimed. And then that we don't do the reclaimed animals at this point.
So on the reclaim, that should also be a good process or a process before they're released back to the person.
Correct. Where we're going to find difficulty, and that is something that we had actually looked at, and then I went to a meeting at the veterinary board and found out that the reason why we can't do that, if the city owns the animal, we can do it, we can microchip it, but it's also considered a surgical procedure. So by law, I can't microchip your dog until it becomes the city's property.
If you pick it up, you capture it into the property of the city, then that's what I'm saying.
We could look at that. I'd have to check with a veterinary board because they're the ones who are going to be the one who would rule and say on that. There's other ways other people are going about doing it, but it would be nice to be able to have everything. And we could maybe do that in a different way where we encourage, and instead of a city license, then if you do a microchip instead of a city license, we could change our ordinance And with a microchip, it could be a lifelong license or at a special rate versus a city tag. If you have to get a city tag because your animal isn't microchipped, that way it's more of an encouragement for people to do. And so that way we can get them back to their owners.
They give them more responsibility to them.
Yes, yes. And a lot of people really want to spay and neuter. I talk about spay and neuter a lot and bringing low cost programs. The state will help do funding. This year we missed out on some of the money to get for the state and propose for animals shelters that were doing low cost spay and neuter and offering it to the public. They were able to get funding and write for funding and get money from the state to actually cover that.
At that facility, property there, is there enough room to be able to sell the facility that's there to the vet and build a new facility on that property or not?
If you wanted to buy the 2 lots, yes, you could you could keep part of that back part of the, I don't believe she wants really any part of the back part of it. She just wanted the facility itself. You could, there's a few things we need to look at as far as where that property line actually is and access to the back of that clinic. But it is 2 lots. So if you wanted to sell 1 lot, you could then keep the other lot. They're 100 by 214, I believe. That's how the width is 100 in width. So
as far as the facility that you were looking to build, there's ample space there.
I believe so, yes. But we don't want to build like twice the size because then that's twice to fill up. With our community, we still want to keep the numbers down.
The water well.
Correct. Well, we'd have to subdivide that. Then we'd have to do a summary replat. And because the water well is actually on a certain lot. So it's on the lot located on the north side lot. So you would want to then keep that where the water well is. That's where the housing is where the water well is located. And it goes over to the horse stalls. But it is an option.
Yes. Jackie, can you back 1 slide, please? So, long-term option 1B, you listed funded by other sources. What is that thing you're talking about there?
So you can get, one thing you could fund, when I talk, that's the spay, the low cost, and that's funded by other sources, the state programs. You can also, I can get grant money that would bring in, the Humane Society is willing to help out. They also have like these spay neuter vans that can come down to your community and do a low cost for the community and citizens. And with us having a facility, it really opens up the door. So if we keep that facility, then we can bring in, we're actually being able to talk to like the vets that are over doing the West Texas low cost spay and neuter. They raised over, I believe it was like $500,000 from other sources to pay for the community to be able to bring your animal in and get it fixed for like $80 to $100 that would cost you $400 to $600 somewhere else. So there's money out there, there's grant money out there, there's donation money out there. There's other sources to tap into that to be able to provide those low cost spay programs for the citizens. And so that's where option 2, I would say, keep that building and then we could utilize that building to provide those services as well as having the vet come in and do certain days spay and neuter for the shelter.
Thank you.
Sure.
So you say grant funding, what's my percentage?
What is your percentage of
What's
the?
my percentage? Because every grant we get, there's a percentage we got to pay out of it. Is it
You know,
10%? Is it 20%? Is it 50%? It makes a difference because
That
that's
is true.
so. And then the thing is, what does this cost me a year as we are right now?
Cost you a year. So in the veterinary services in the budget, it was around $50,000 was what I budgeted, which was approximately $50 per animal that came in using off the numbers. Now we have, this year we're at $40,000 just for that includes everything. So if you're paying a consulting vet, so when they come over and do spay and neuter, you're paying $100 an hour is what we've been paying, $100 an hour. So during the time we were doing 2.5 hours, so that's $250. We were doing up to 10 to 12 dogs. Now, if you're having a really bad day and some pregnant dogs and things don't go as planned, then you could do as little as 3 to 4 dogs during that 2.5 hour period of time. So it is very flexible. And then we bring.
So what I'm just asking is,
sure,
what does it cost me a year? Manpower and what the city pays out?
On everything?
Yeah, it's important.
Like our whole budget or just for those services?
For the services and the employee, how much of that does that cost me a year? What I'm asking.
The program,
The whole
just the whole,
So your guys' wages, everything.
we're looking. The numbers have never been right on our wages in the last couple of years on whatever, so I'm thinking 150 to 50, so $200,000.
$200,000, cost the city of Lovington $200,000 to run this facility.
Yes, just for those simple services, yes. Doesn't include dog food and cat food.
That's, you gotta throw that in there. You gotta throw that in there.
So our whole budget's around $220,000.
So let's just say, let's round it up. Let's be really here. Let's say $250,000 a year is what it costs.
To have the animal services.
So it's roughly $20,000 a month to run that facility.
The whole program, yes. The shelter, everything within it, yes. And then on the, when you talk about matching, yes, some grants are matching, but some are not. The state funding that we brought in, that was $9,000, we did not have to match at all.
But most everything we've seen here lately has a match or a percentage or something like that, so.
Correct, and all the funding that we've received, and we received also $3,000 through the Bounty Foundation, through the Humane Society, and that $3,000 paid for all the crates and stuff like that. We've been able to obtain and get a little bit of funding to help come in, to help do these programs, and we have not had to match anything for that. But yes, I understand what you're saying, there are a lot of matches.
But you're saying that, okay, so we have less than $20,000 grants that we
Correct.
out of the $250,000.
Correct.
We didn't get 10%, so I'm just trying to put all the numbers in my head.
I could put the numbers down where if you cut the program and don't do any of it, is that what you're?
No,
Look at?
it costs me to run this
Okay,
because I don't profit anything from it.
most shelters do not profit, correct?
So this is one of the great things about it.
Yes, that we, but where we try to make up that cost is when you adopt the dog. So we went from in our ordinance, it states it's a $25 adoption fee. But then we did the $25 deposit that's required by the state law for spay and neuter. And we were still charging the $50, that $25 goes into, and that actually also helps. So the citizens are paying a part of that. So that $25 actually went into a fund that actually did pay for part of those services.
Or probably what you need to just break it down for Commissioner Gandy.
Okay.
Costs and so forth.
Okay.
I think I just want to also say that I am in favor of selling the building because as you stated in your presentation, it's out of spec. I don't know how long it would be in spec. We're to maintain that building, let's say for another year. We're, as a city, going to have to bring that back to spec. It's going to be another cost for the city. So I lean on more looking at you either building the back, Commissioner Bolt was suggesting, or something like that, because if we start remodeling, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars. You really don't have to put into a facility that works, that it's has a cost operating cost of $250,000 a year. So we have to do something with that building, but I just don't see the city investing in a building that's already on spec and most likely be red tagged in, and we'll have to pump 100,000. And that's also with the equipment. I'd like to please look at them too. And like I said, the 150,000 is to design and construct. This for it's not to remodel. So we have to design and construct. That's what the 150,000 for. So correct to understand that that's what that money's allocated.
Correct, which I did not present to
Yeah.
remodel. On the thing that's not going to pass inspection, that's your the X-ray and the developing machine. That's what's not going to possibly pass state inspection. But yes, it would cost a lot to renovate, and it would be very difficult and a huge cost because it's all unlevel and you'd have to bring it up to ADA compliance, which would be a huge cost, and it would be cheaper to build. Correct.
I appreciate the presentation.
Are we going to any direction on which direction we're going to move forward in the short term on as far as the consulting bit? Are we going to go out for RFP? Or are we
We can
going
bring
to?
it up to the board on, as an action item. see what we plan on doing after they review your documents that you sent.
So come to next meeting and you'll give direction on which RFP direction we're gonna go out? Is that what you're saying?
We'll probably have to have another discussion on the RFP. Because we got 3 different items. So we have to agree on which one we want to go out to RFP. So
Okay.
it'll probably be an action item on the RFP,
To go out to RFP?
but which we're going to take on. And it could be part of an action item, we can just specify which RFP we take on.
So next meeting, you wanna tell me which one you want to,
No, it would be all 3 options up there.
so you want all 3 in an RFP
We
form?
could choose the option, which one we want to go out for.
So you want me to write 3
Or
RFP?
whatever you had, you said you had 2 different up there.
There was 3 different options.
So then bring 3 different options for our, and then the board can decide which RFP they want to take.
Okay.
Agreed.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve? I'm sorry. Moving on to action items, do I have a motion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for resolution 2021-089, approval of bonds to refinance.
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Bernard, second by Commissioner Campos. Chief?
Mayor and Commissioners, this resolution before you is a refinancing of the hold harmless bond that we had. Both this one and the next one are going to be kind of the same direction, but we had to have them in 2 different resolutions. And it's done, this one is done with the Finance Authority. Like I said, for those hold harmless bonds.
Yes, and Brad did maybe his presentation on our last board meeting, but we didn't have this as an action item on the agenda. So it's both resolution 089 and 094 is the one we presented. That was presented to us on our last board meeting. And what it was, because we dropped it because we had both of them on there below the approved one on our last board meeting. And it had both of them on there, remember, we took it off because it had both of them.
I didn't even remember talking about the magistrate court.
Refinance.
It was still,
Yes, sir. And all it is on the refinance, it's a bond, but the lease pays for the bond. It doesn't come out of city's GRT or it's a lease agreement we make with the courts, New Mexico courts. And what they pay us on the lease pays for the bond. The city does not.
That's a magistrate.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying what Commissioner Bo was at. But on the resolution right now, that the table is 2021-089. Is there any discussion? There's no discussion, roll call vote. Shannon?
Commissioner Butcher,
Yes.
Commissioner Compost,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe,
yes.
Commissioner Gandy,
Yes.
Mayor Trujillo.
Yes. Resolution passes. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to consider resolution 2021-094, approval to refinance Mexico Court bond. Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Compost, second by Commissioner Gandy.
Mayor and Commissioners on this one as well. It's just like the last one. This was a New Mexico Finance Authority bond reworking for the magistrate court. Also, the reason why this one was missed in the last one, we were under the impression it was one resolution. They actually sent us 2 different ones.
And we also want to mention that we couldn't refinance master court bond because we just got our approval by the state that they would refinance, and that was just as fast from the state. So, but they did approve of the bond. And the bond, like I said, is paid by the lease agreement with the state. So when they pay it, it is paid in the bond company as well as the state, their agreement with payment agreements and so forth that they cover all. Is there any further discussion? There's no further discussion. Roll call, Shannon.
Commissioner Bowe,
Yes.
Commissioner Gandy,
Yes.
Commissioner Compost,
Yes.
Commissioner Butcher,
Yes.
Mayor Trivio.
Yes. Resolution passes. Do I have a
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to consider resolution 2021-095, approval of absorption of Livingston Dispatch into LCCA.
Second that.
made by Commissioner Compost, seconded by Commissioner Polk. Chief.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, this covers everything which has been presented to you before. Basically, we would join LCCA without obtaining a board seat at no cost. LCCA would take over all emergency calls, some not emergency calls. They will assume all costs of that. They will provide us with this Spillman database, 20 seats for Lovington Police and Fire. They will, as part of that, provide approximately 20 MDTs or mobile data terminals for our patrol cars and fire and EMS units. Of our 5 current dispatchers, we would retain 2 as record clerks with expanded duties. The other 3, I believe 2 have already applied to LCCA, and they would not lose their salary. It would be the greater of the current salary of what they would get at LCCA, and they would receive county benefits.
Is there any discussion?
What about the retirement?
Ours, the 2 that stay or the 3 that potentially go?
We're going.
They take their years of tenure with them, and then they would be on the county's retirement, which I believe is slightly more attractive than the current one that they have.
All right. And what is your recommendation?
I believe that it is a very good opportunity overall for this community. As I said in my presentation, once in a generation for what we're being provided. We will undertake a re-education campaign of the community to tell them who to call in an emergency, non-emergency, so that come January 10th, the winter goes through, the public is going to be brought up to speed and hopefully a seamless transition.
So that.
Is there any further discussion? There's no further discussion. Roll call, vote, Shannon.
Commissioner Gandy,
Yes.
Commissioner Butcher,
Yes.
Commissioner Compost,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe,
Yes.
Mayor Trivio.
Yes. Resolution passes. Thank you, Luciano. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for resolution 2021-096, approval of transferring a hangar to Zip Franklin to the Lee County. Franklin to Lee County.
Motion was made by Commissioner Gandy, seconded by Commissioner Compost. Crystal?
Yeah, Mayor and Commissioners, this is the resolution to release that structure that is on the county's property out at the Franklin Airport that we had the discussion on at the last meeting. I know Patrick had something he wanted to say on that.
Yeah, there's just one quick point. Normally, when you have an item like a building that's fixed to a piece of property, it would be real property. If you take a look at the resolution, we're listing this as personal property. The reason is that the old lease agreement identifies that as still being, the building is personal property of the city of Lovington, and that's pretty common with airport hangars, not just out there, but other locations. So it's a little bit different than what you would normally see with a structure that's attached. But that's how it's set up in the original lease agreement, and that's how Crystal has correctly identified it as far as the transition. I think the other thing that was important that Crystal was going to talk to you about is our ability to use that what it would cost to fix it versus what its value would be. And so it seems to be more of a liability for the city than an asset. So, and if I'm mistaken, just correct me.
No.
Are there any questions? No, there's no questions. Roll call vote, Shannon.
Mr. Compost,
Yes.
Mr. Bolt,
Yes.
Mr. Gandy,
Yes.
Commissioner Butcher,
Yes.
Mayor Trujillo.
Yes. Resolution passes.
Prayer, I'll make a motion for resolution 2021-097, approval of the library board of appointments, appointing Judge Finger and Ava Binge, and leaving the open position open until our next meeting in December. Hopefully someone will be contacted.
Motion was made by Commissioner Gandy, second by Commissioner Bolt. Is there any questions? There's no questions. Roll call, Shannon.
Commissioner Butcher,
Yes.
Commissioner Bolt,
Yes.
Commissioner Gandy,
Yes.
Commissioner Compost,
Yes.
Mayor Trujillo.
Yes, resolution passes. Do I have a motion?
Second, make a motion resolution 2021-098. Approval of return of wastewater and water maintenance departments and home titles separation.
Motion was made by Commissioner Bolt, second by Commissioner Bernard. Gentlemen, I put this on the agenda. As you well know, we've had a lot of water leaks and a lot of sewer line interruptions. The guys are putting in the hours, but they're limited to 34 hours a week, so they've been trying to ensure that they don't get above 34 hours. I think the picture we don't see is that we are getting behind on some of the projects they have to take care of, as well as their schooling, their education. Some of the guys do like CDL license, and also on the water department, wastewater, getting their water level. So this way they can, they are currently fully staffed wastewater, other than the two frozen positions that we have, one in water and one in wastewater. But currently the guys are fully staffed. As you well know, that they've been taking care of a lot of water lines, a lot of sewer lines that are out there. But I also want to let you guys know that they also need the educational part too, and they're not having time to go get their CDL license, they're not having time to go get their water bill. So that's why I recommend it. Them for getting any further behind, go with normal operations of 40 hours.
So basically, who does that leave that is not?
Currently with the entire city, it's office staff plus parks and recs and road department. Everybody else is 40 hours plus overtime. That's the police department and the fire department. But fire department did take a reduction in staff, so everybody would be at overtime plus 40 hours. So that's something I did discuss with the team about. We are going to look into it. Commissioner Gandy, he requested some information from Deputy Treasurer on our next meeting as a discussion item. See what is the time frame of bringing everybody back to 40 hours. And currently our financial, we're doing well financially. Just going to check before we make a decision. But it will be a discussion item on our next meeting. We did make a lot of, for instance, Wayne Duncan is no longer with us, out $90,000 a year. Parks and Rec, since we consolidate Parks and Recs with road department, that is also left a $50,000 salary off the books. So with them to off the books, and additional $140,000 in savings currently just off them. Which you guys, with the board of commission, did agree on the restructuring on how we managed to see. So it was a cost savings of $140,000 when we did that here about a couple of months back.
So that covered the hours that we added on?
Easy. there any more discussion? No further discussion, roll call, vote, Shannon.
Commissioner Bolt,
Yes.
Commissioner Butcher,
Yes.
Commissioner Gandy,
Yes.
Commissioner Compost,
Yes.
Mayor Trujillo.
Yes. Resolution passes. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to consider accounts payable.
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Compost, second by Mr. Gandy.
So we're going to address this one.
I'm sorry, Deputy Treasurer, or Melissa, excuse me, Commissioner Bolton.
Okay. Vendor 11552, Covington Economic Development. For a retail coach for $10,000. That was a contract. I'm just wondering who authorized dealing with that. Because from my commission meeting, June 8th, 2020, it was a non-action item. I know that we passed it. But it states in here, EDC Director Evelyn Levine informed the commission that communication with retail coaches good. This will be a one-year contract related to the EDC and retail coach. I'm just wondering how they got approved. Didn't come through us.
Did we have a signed contract with them?
It was a one-year deal.
Oh, go ahead, Evan. I'm sorry.
Again, Evelyn Holguin, the $10,000 is an agreement between EDC of Lovington and the EDC of Lee County. It's actually costing the full county $25,000. So our portion was $10,000 and they're footing the bill for the other communities that can afford it. But it's a retail recruitment company that recruits for everyone in Lee County. And that's just our agreement. Originally, we were paying $50,000 a year and we went ahead and partnered with them so it could be cheaper on us and they're covering the full county.
Yeah, but that was a one-year contract, right?
Yes. It's year to year now.
So who approved that? That would go forward?
It was actually approved a while back. It's just we didn't get any invoicing from the EDC of Lee County in a couple of months, but it actually sat for a little while before it was actually processed.
So would that have to come through us?
It did go, yeah, the city commission did approve it several months back because it came out of the LIDA account.
We have to know when that was.
I would have to look. I can get back to you and let you know, but I do know that it did come to the city commission.
If you look, please.
I will. I'll check it.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Tracy or Melissa? Lee County State Bank, 25,296.67. Can you advise on those?
The November hold harmless debt payment.
Did she respond?
Just refresh my memory from 5,000 for the NMED, CPB.
That was a water loan.
Did you elaborate on that, please? Who was it for? Is that economic development? Or what is that? It's a huge, some change.
Yes. Oh, the 300.
It's a loan that
It's
comes
a bond.
due every year. And
It's a bond payment.
it's a bond,
Oh,
yeah.
it's a bond,
I'm sorry,
yeah. It comes due in November.
Yes, November.
Wastewater, water.
Is it water or is it waste?
Wastewater.
Wastewater.
Wastewater, it's just payment on the wastewater.
Yeah,
facility.
Yes, yes.
2008.
Yes.
Sorry, one thing.
I'm sorry.
Take them here.
I took it wrong.
Pasco for 5, as far as repairs.
Design street sweeper cooling problems.
Thank you.
I'd like to welcome the board, on our United Healthcare plan. We did receive a rebate from last year's payment of, so we have a rebate of $200,600 rebate. It's not unaccounted for this fiscal year, so we can add that will be added to the GRT. And it's in form of a credit, so it is paid out as credit. So for instance, monthly, we pay $90,000, approximately $90,000 in healthcare insurance. So it covers about a little over 2 months worth of healthcare insurance. We're going to get credit back to you this week.
Sorry.
There's no further discussion, roll call, Shannon.
Commissioner Gandy,
Yes.
Commissioner Compost,
Yes.
Commissioner Bolt,
Yes.
Commissioner Butcher,
Yes.
Mayor Trujillo.
Yes. Councilor Payne, do you have a motion to go into closed session?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to section 10-15-1, New Mexico State annotated 1978, subsection H8, regarding the purchase, acquisition, lease, disposition of real property or water rights, peace plan.
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Compost, second by Commissioner Gandy. Roll call, Shannon.
Commissioner Compost,
Yes.
Commissioner Bolt,
Yes.
Commissioner Butcher,
Yes.
Commissioner Gandy,
Yes.
Mayor Trujillo.
Yes, we are in closed session.
So, I'm gonna go.
Okay.